We've known for some time now that it was going to be difficult for the Chicago Bulls to move Zach Lavine. And now there is speculation that the Bulls will have to add draft capital just to trade Zach Lavine. We got to definitely talk about that. And then the Chicago Bulls go ahead and finalize the trade deal. And there's some details that came out regarding the move that sent DeMar DeRozan to the Sacramento Kings. And then AK show a little love. Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down. But you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. And I gotta say thank you to all the great Chicago Bulls fans out there. Y'all been showing up and showing out with the continued support. We continue to ask for that support and continue to subscribe so we can continue to put out this great content for your Chicago Bulls. But now into it. Before we get into the Zach Lavine thing, I want to just go ahead and mention that more details came out regarding the DeMar DeRozan to the Sacramento Kings trade. We know regarding to the Chicago Bulls, they acquired Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks, and then it was also added in as a later detail that Raquan Gray was added on to this as well, but then he was eventually waived. So, yeah, you know that. And then some details, there was still no clarification on the second round picks or when they're coming. Are they 2025, 2027, 26, 28? What? We don't know the details on that, but we still do know that the Chicago Bulls get their second round picks. And that's something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But AK and the Bulls, the guy at the helm of the Bulls front office, pretty much came out and said that, hey, we are thrilled to bring in Chris Duarte into the mix here with his experience, versatility, and offensive abilities. We thank DeMar for everything he has done for our team as a leader and mentor. Everyone inside our building appreciated and respected DeMar's professionalism and commitment to this organization and the city of Chicago, and we wish him the best in Sacramento. Again, just real brief. Some people, if you don't believe that DeMar DeRozan is a Chicago Bulls legend, cool, that's you. Me personally, I say you got to ink him up in there for everything that he's done for Chicago, even with everything that was going on surrounding him. My man's always showed up, put in the work, and definitely gave us some great moments. So good luck to you, DeMar DeRozan, over there in Sacramento. I hope you ball out just as long as you ain't balling out against the Chicago Bulls. When you see the Chicago Bulls, don't drop 40, gang. And you know when we go to Sacramento, the game going to be at 10 p.m. Eastern. Don't give us a 40-piece, bro. Don't give us a 40-piece. But shout out to DeMar DeRozan. Now into the most important stuff. Now, it was reported by Joe Cowley. Once a lame, always a lame. Anyway, for my people that know, y'all know what it is. But Joe Cowley reporting that the Bulls are hoping to attach 2 second-round picks to a Zach Lavine trade to possibly move him. They understand that right now the market is not so great in the favor of moving Zach Lavine. So it is probably, being, talked about around the Bulls organizations of attaching some type of draft capital to move Zach Lavine. And I know there's some uproar between some people, but I got to break it down to you guys and let you know, look, it has happened before. People attach draft picks to move players that they don't necessarily want all the time. And I got a few examples here. I know last year, the Dallas Mavericks, when they went out and got Daniel Gafford, they traded for Daniel Gafford. They traded Richaun Holmes in a first-round pick. I know that some people are like, well, Daniel Gafford is better than Richaun Holmes. I would say at that particular moment, there was no definitive answer that Richaun Holmes and Daniel Gafford, one was better than the other. I think both of them was pretty much question marks for both of their respective organizations. And once those guys changed their teams, it was a different story between them. The Dallas Mavericks also did it to acquire P.J. Washington. They gave up Seth Curry, Grant Williams, and 2 protected first-round picks. So this thing is something that's not new. It's something that happens. It's something that has happened and will continue to happen. I know there are Bulls fans that are in an uproar right now because the Bulls might attach draft capital to trade Zach Lavine. And then there's going to be someone that say, well, the 2025 draft is so stacked, you have to get drafts. Yeah, cool. Okay, fine. But you can draft as many players as you want. But where's the development? The development matters in all this. I understand that people want the Chicago Bulls to go out and acquire so many, players and get them in and out of here. And there's even a let's start the tankathon for Cooper Flag. I'm not on board with that. I personally don't see it happen. I honestly can be wrong, but I personally don't see the tank being in favor for the Chicago Bulls with the history that we have. And looking at the history of the Detroit Pistons, the last two drafts after being the worst team, or at least one of the worst teams in the NBA, and they still fall behind teams that have more wins than them. It's a bit odd, isn't it? But back on to the daily, back to the regular schedule program, as some of my great Chicago Bulls and Bears fans say. Shout out to y'all. But hey, I said it once. I'm going to say it again, and I need y'all to listen to me this time. Listen. I don't need you to start talking. Just listen. Zach Lavine is going to have to crawl his way out of this narrative. He's going to have to crawl his way out of this narrative that he's not a winning player. No one is going to care about who he's played with. I know there's a gentleman on who's a writer out there. I believe his name is Stephen No. He put together a decent article, breaking down teammates and coaches and stuff like that. I'm going to just say, even though it was a great article, most fans, most executives, they don't give a shit. They don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Because once that narrative cloud comes over you as the player, that dark, smoky cloud that's raining on your parade comes over you, it's hard to let those stormy clouds turn into partly cloudy skies. It's hard to turn those partly cloudy skies to we're going to have some sunlight. Or it's going to, from that sunlight to we're going to have complete blue skies. It's going to be beautiful. It's hard to do that. No one's going to care about him playing with Arcidiacono. Nobody's going to care about him playing with Larry Markkinen, Thomas Saransky, Shaq Harrison, Cristiano Felicio. No one's going to give a damn. We care, or at least some of us. I care. But no one's going to care for that if they're looking at Zach Lavine and what he's done in his career. Then we talk about coaches. My goodness. I was shocked. I said, y'all wanted a man to be successful with this type of coaching? You crazy. Flip side is I ain't going to throw no shades on him. I didn't really get to see that experience with Zach Lavine, so I'm going to leave that alone. But then you got guys like a Sam Smith, I believe was one of Zach Lavine coaches, a Tom Thibodeau, which I'd say was a solid coach, but he was eventually traded out of there to acquire Jimmy Butler, so I couldn't even be mad at that. Then Zach Lavine had to fall in the hands of a Fred Hoiberg, fall into the hands of a Jim Boylan. And then, not as bad as the last two, mentioned, but Billy Donovan. Come on. But, again, no one's going to give a shit about that Zach Lavine. I'm going to look at it because I like looking at the context. I don't necessarily like listening to what everybody else is thinking. I like to see and gather. I like to listen to different viewpoints, gather all that information, take some time, and draw my own conclusions, hence why I'm bringing it to you like this. This happens all the time. There is a chance that these two draft picks might be gone with Zach Lavine, and I wouldn't be shocked. But and it's because of the narrative that's surrounding Zach Lavine. If we looking at Kyrie Irving in his narrative before last season, before he was a part of the greatest offensive backcourt in NBA history, he was a locker room cancer. Remember that? Before Kyrie was able to see and push the Dallas Mavericks forward with all this stuff, he was the worst teammate in the league. You couldn't trust him. Now he's part of the greatest offensive backcourt in NBA history. I didn't say it. They said it. But then if you're still thinking about the narratives when we talk about him, ladies and gentlemen, look at Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard barely fucking plays the game, but they still love him. I can't stand him. And it's not because of anything personal. I want to see him play. That's why I can't stand him. You are so great. I want to see you play, but you ain't playing. But look at the narrative surrounding Kawhi Leonard. The reason that they're not castigating him like others is because he's a two-time champion. He went to Toronto. He won an entire trophy for an entire country. Cool. But I can't stand the bastard because I want to see him play He barely plays, and he ducks the smoke because he a two-time champion. He a X amount of time all-star, and when he does play, he's spectacular. We want to see him compete in the playoffs when it matters and stop leaving his teammates out there dry hanging. Boom. But now we talk about those two different things. Kyrie Irving, the vocal guy who's been playing more than Kawhi Leonard, gets more shade than Kawhi Leonard because Kawhi Leonard stays quiet and Kyrie is a little more expressive with the way he feels. Now, if we can continue on this cycle, we talking about these narratives, right? Let's talk about Ben Simmons. Let's talk about Ben Simmons. At the time that Ben Simmons went to the Philadelphia 76ers, the only concern is the injury. Does he really want to play for Philly? I would say there was really no bad taste in people's mouth, at least from my perspective. But if you're looking at it, just to get off of Ben Simmons, the Sixers had to give Brooklyn Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks just to get off Ben Simmons and get James Harden back. If you ask me, Ben Simmons, James Harden, around that time, the money should have been relatively close. Around that time, I could be wrong, but around that time, the money could have been relatively close. And you add Paul Millsap, and you might get some players involved, but the Sixers had to give up first-round capital just to move Ben Simmons based off the narrative, y'all. And you want to know what's really crazy? Let's talk about Bradley Beal. I got to talk about Bradley Beal. What has he done in Washington? Not much. Can we keep it a buck? He was always a solid player, a hell of a player, an all-star caliber player. But once John Wall went out, got hurt, switched teams, didn't show up, couldn't be there, what was going on with Brad Beal? Nothing. A bunch of high-scoring games that resulted in losses. Keep it a buck. But what was the narrative? These guys like to go off the narrative, and some of y'all be believing in it. Do your own research. Look at your own stuff. Just look at the facts. He ain't had much success up in his time in Washington and once John Wall left. As an individual, cool. But is that a winning player? That's my question. Is he a winning player? Is he a winning player? It's something I gotta know. Good morning, baby. Now go ahead. I gotta do something. Go. No, baby, go. I'm gonna be done in a minute. Hey, I was cooking. My baby said we had, she just woke up. We bright and early, but we here. But back on to it. Bradley Beal, my guy. What was he doing once John Wall left? But nonetheless, this is how we know narratives control some other people's mind. Bradley Beal was traded to the Suns with Jordan Goodwin and Isaiah Todd. Guess what the Wizards got? Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, Bilal. I don't want to, screw up the name, but that was a 7th-round pick for that year that Bradley Beal was traded. They got a 2024 first round, 2026 first round, 2028 first round, 2030 first round. That's 4 first-round picks with a bunch of second-round pick swaps. With a bunch of second-round picks. 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028. And a lot of these first-round pick swaps. Y'all see how narratives control this market? And guess what? The Pacers got them first-round picks out of this too. They was able to draft Jarris Walker, and they got them 2 future second-round picks. Tell me that narratives don't matter. They do. All that given. Brad Beal got traded for all that. You can't tell me, as a person that watches basketball, that whether you believe Brad Beal is better than Zach Lavine or not, that he's that much better than him to the point to where you can't accumulate some type of draft capital in return for Zach Lavine. It's ridiculous. But, again, the entire point is that narratives control the story in the NBA. And for Zach Lavine, I think the only option left for the Chicago Bulls, well, it's not the only option, but it's 2 options. You can either include some draft capital to get them off your books, or you can go ahead and play relationship rehabilitation. I don't really like that. I'm not even going to lie to you. I don't really like the fact that Zach Lavine can come back and play for 20 games and then you can trade him. I think that's something that you might have to strongly consider. I don't necessarily like it. I get it. People's going to say, you want this, you want the draft capital, you want the 2025 draft, which is one of the most loaded drafts. Okay, cool. I don't care about that shit. I don't. I understand the need for getting better. I understand the desire to have so much draft capital that you don't know what to do with it, Sam Presti. Don't even get me started on that one. But the point is that the Bulls got to make a change. That's the point. And I don't need anything lingering around this young team. You got young guys with experience, with versatility and experience. It's not like you traded for a bunch of guys fresh out of college, fresh from overseas. All these guys got 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience, and they're still young. P. Will been in the league forever. It's what it seemed like. He only 22. Kobe White, 24, 25. Ayo, 24. Josh Giddey, not even 22 yet. So I would say, if you got to attach some second-round picks, to hell with them. To hell with the second-round picks, because second-round picks don't normally pan out. It's not so many jokers that's going to fall in your laps. It's not so many Draymond Greens that's going to fall in your laps. But I do know one thing that has to be important for the Chicago Bulls is player development. Can we really sit up here and say we trust AK and Mark Eversley to draft the right players? As of today, no, we cannot. We can say it looks good. We see players turning in the right direction, but nothing has really hit yet from their draft pick to say he's the next star. He's the next superstar. He's an all-star caliber player. We got a few here, maybe, but there's nothing definitive about him. We know Ayo Dosunmu has improved. Is he an all-star caliber player? That's something we will have to discuss. We know that Kobe White put himself as the most improved player conversation. Is he an all-star caliber player, though? That's still to be determined. He still is young and he still needs to grow. That's why the cancer or the problems in the locker room don't need to be lingering. I get it. I'm with it. If you say I'm going to hold on to these draft picks, hold on to them. But you got to have a plan for Zach Lavine. If that's bringing him back 20 games, 25 games, cool. I will support that as long as you have a plan. Have a plan. But ladies and gentlemen, stop falling into the narrative so much. Draw your own conclusions. We just mapped out all this stuff to where players have been traded away with first-round picks and how sometimes the narrative controls how much the team can get in return when the player not even that damn good. I'm going to leave it at that. You draw your own conclusions, but let me know. Would you be giving up draft capital to trade Zach Lavine? I say that's something you might have to do depending on where you want to go with this. But it's definitely something you might have to stay away from so you can get young players in here. But have a plan. Have a plan, stick to the plan, and move on. That's it. That's all I asked for. I gave y'all my thoughts. I gave y'all everything that I had for today. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. Thank y'all so much for tuning in again to another episode of Shy Bulls Podcast. I'm Bobby. I'm going to definitely catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac. Gang.